basic basic house rules in some basic initial comments before we start with the presentation. So let me remind everyone, these are APPNA Merit Healthcare webinars, exploring healthcare research and innovation landscape in Pakistan. These are part of webinar series that hopefully will lead to an international conference in December that we're planning along with my co-chair, Babar Rao, who's the organizing committee's chair for that conference in Pakistan. We are really, as I mentioned before, the idea was for these webinars was to explore for ourselves what is the landscape of healthcare research in Pakistan and innovation, and then also share that information and knowledge with the leadership within APPNA Merit committees and in Pakistan to understand how can we collaborate, how can we do a better job. So we're still finalizing the details for the December conference, but it will very likely be December 22nd. And it would very likely be in Rawalpindi Medical University, but we'll make some more announcements. We have confirmed all the details of the venue and conference details. So again, a reminder, these are CME webinars. They're approved for ACCME AMA Category 1 CME by APPNA. This is very kindly and graciously sponsored by APPNA RISA Committee, the Research and Scientific Affairs Committees of APPNA. And the CME is offered once a quarter. So after every 12 webinars, and we have issued the first quarter CMEs. And if you have not received those, and if you attended some webinars in the first quarter, please write to us on appnamerit@gmail.com, and we will issue the next batch of CME after the second quarter. And for that reason, we try to disclose as much as we can for the conflict of interest for the speaker, with the background. We do invite many industry partners in Pakistan to present, to really understand the healthcare research and innovation landscape. We're not giving any specific support to any of the partners, and these are educational webinars only and are done in that spirit. So with that, disclosures out, it's my pleasure for the webinars for today. I am delighted with the topic. This is really the need of the hour. And we will be talking about the artificial intelligence healthcare in healthcare, but basic introduction. But I think that will give us a platform to talk about the role of AI in healthcare and how Pakistan can leapfrog forward its presence by utilizing these kind of technologies, which are which are less resource intense and are more easy to implement. So it's my pleasure to have a very worthy speaker and a very worthy panelist for this talk, two of my really good friends and people I look up to. So our speaker today is Professor Dr. Sarwat Hussain. Professor Sarwat Hussain is a graduate of King Edward Medical College, my alumni, and is currently a professor of radiology at University of Massachusetts Medical School. He has served at some of the leading institutions such as Harvard, Boston, London, Aga Khan, King Saud, and now at Massachusetts. He has 22 years of experience as a department chair and 21 years experience as a vice chairman in the US, Pakistan, and Middle East, including Aga Khan University, Howard University, and King Faisal Specialist Hospital. He has published 154 abstracts and authored 85 publications and has done many book reviews. He has mentored physicians, radiologists, faculty, graduating engineers. He has served as the Board of Development and Relief Foundation, Team Karbala, member of Lancet NIH Commission on Global Radiology, and member of Radiological Society of North America, Committee on International Education. At the University of Massachusetts, he started Journal of Global Radiology in 2015 as its founding editor-in-chief. And for his voluntary and global work, Dr. Hussain was awarded the 2019 Humanitarian Award of the American College of Radiology and pioneered the Global Institute of Healthcare Quality in Pakistan. Dr. Sarwat has now been a leading force in developing artificial intelligence committee within APPNA Merit. He's a founding chair of that AI committee, which is a newly formed committee, and really is very driven to reform the AI understanding and culture in Pakistan. So it's my great pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Sarwat Hussain. Dr. Sarwat, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Danish Saab, and thank you for Dr. Kalia to coordinate this activity. And first of all, thank you very much for, let me just get my slide up. Thank you for the kind introduction. It's kind of humbling and somewhat embarrassing, but thank you again very much. So today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence for the non-experts. So non-experts is the emphasis of today, because neither I'm the expert, and I hope that many of the audiences are not experts, so that they can take something out of what we're going to talk about today. So today what we're going to try and do is to discuss artificial intelligence, and so that we, the physicians, are become comfortable with various terminologies in artificial intelligence. And when you come across the literature in artificial intelligence, and apparently there are, in the last 4 years, there have been 6,000 artificial intelligence related publication in radiology alone. And just imagine in other parts of medicine overall and the rest of the technology, there is a tsunami, if you will, in a tsunami in a good way, of artificial intelligence literature out there. And so that when you read the literature, you're able to decipher what they're talking about, at least be comfortable with the terminology. And then to try and understand the application of artificial intelligence around you, because they are already there and circling and encompassing us all the time. And we hope that as a result of this, many people will be able to adopt some teaching resources so that they, in their own circle of friends and acquaintances, can teach artificial intelligence. And I'd be happy to share my slides with whoever requests it for that purpose. And then we have already, under the leadership of Dr. Junaid Kalia, have put together a writing group in which we will begin to write about artificial intelligence in the medical literature as well as in the lay literature, including Urdu newspapers, so that common persons become familiar with this, because that will produce a huge grassroots movement in our country, so that there will be interest in artificial intelligence and education in data sciences, so that maybe 2, 3, 5, 10, or 20 years later, we can accrue the benefit, just like one of the country's neighbor, one of our neighbors had accrued the benefits of education in mathematics and are accruing that benefit at this time. And then also research in artificial intelligence is, as Dr. Bhatti said, is relatively easy if we understand and are tolerant with the complexity that comes with it. And at the end, we will discuss about whether the artificial intelligence would replace the physicians, because we, the radiologists especially, are talking about whether we should try and look for another trade to work. So the artificial intelligence, I'm just going to show you a little a clip that if I can play it. So basically, this was a demonstration of something that no longer that is something that the parrot does not have the innate attribute of being able to speak the language, but with education and with continuous training, he's able to, or it is able to demonstrate some. Just keep that thought in mind while we go forward. Here is another very interesting slide which talks about, this is regarding the, this is relevant to the recent Euro Cup final. And if you notice that in these slides, same scene of a stadium is demonstrating different advertisement banner on the side in such a way that the banners are interest to the audience in various parts of the world, so that the advertisement could kind of reach them. And we will talk about a little bit about that also. So for the uh, artificial intelligence, we have to first define what intelligence is. And human intelligence is really a suitcase term with 200 different definitions, which includes the emotional intelligence and capacity to learn and understand and self-awareness and critical thinking and problem solving, several psychological aspects of intelligence. But for the purpose of defined definition and today's discussion, we can say the human intelligence is ability to solve problems and adapt to new situations through perceiving, learning, understanding, and knowing. This is the standard definition from Oxford Dictionary. While the artificial intelligence, we're going to come to the topic now, refers to the machines that mimic human intelligence through perceiving, learning, understanding, and problem solving. Very similar to the human intelligence, except it is kind of defined for the purpose of today's talk and for the purpose of evaluating how similar artificial intelligence and human intelligence is. So getting computers to emulate human behavior through visual perception, recognizing the spoken words or the language, recognizing and understanding and translating, etc. Learning to improve with practice. This is one of the human qualities that you practice more, you learn more. Practice makes perfect. And the computers have the ability to, through artificial intelligence, to improve with practice. Decision making about the future. Now, decision making about the future is important because it gives the prediction and gives an upper edge to anyone who is in business, practice, or medicine. For example, in medicine, you're able to prognosticate of a disease based on the management or previous history or the test results. And they also understand different languages. And this is the attribute that you're able to instantly translate languages between languages. So a very short history of artificial intelligence. It was in 1948 that Alan Turing said that I propose to consider the question, can machines think? And in a lecture in 1947, he said, what we want is a machine that can learn from experience, and that the possibility of letting the machine alter its own instructions provides the machine for this. In other words, it's a self-learning machine. But it was not until 1956 that John McCarthy at Dartmouth College coined the term for the first time as artificial intelligence. So before, the concept of artificial intelligence was there, except it was termed as artificial intelligence by John McCarthy. The artificial intelligence really came to public attention when in 1997, July 1997, IBM computer called Deep Blue beat the then reigning champion of chess, Gary Kasparov, in a match of chess. While in six matches, in the six games, the computer won three, and the champion won two, and one was drawn. So that became a sensation in the public media that computers have the ability or intelligence to do wonders as a result of their function. So prediction is probably the single most important and useful function of artificial intelligence. Prediction based on the data and based on the processing of the data, as we will see in a little while. Well, why did it take so long after Turing in 1947-48 and after John McCarthy in 1956 for the artificial intelligence to emerge? Because the function, the conceptual function was there, but the components of the artificial intelligence were not there. Because the artificial intelligence, to be effective conceptually, the computer had to sift through mountains of data to receive a few, if you will, grams of nugget, as it might happen in gold mining. And that capacity of the artificial intelligence of the computer sciences were not present. It was not until the convergence, now this is a very important slide, it was not until the convergence of three major drivers in computer sciences that led to the emergence or beginning of artificial intelligence. One of them was computing power. With the development of GPU, graphic processing unit, replacing the CPU, the conventional CPU, the central processing unit. The graphic processing unit is being used in gaming, where there is parallel processing, and the ability of computer to decipher and to calculate was 50 to 100 times more, along with the high-powered language that were invented. And one of the most common and commonly used is the Python, but there are others also, Java and C and others. But at the same time, the ability and availability of huge amount of data from the AOT, Internet of Things. The data is as much as uh, 2.5 quintillion bytes per day, which is produced by about 19 billion smart devices in the world that are applicable, that are operating at this time. And the smart device is defined as any device that is connected to the internet and has some memory. And these includes your cell phones, your refrigerators, your computers, your cars, anything that has memory and is connected to the computer. So these three things, huge amount of data, like the mountain we looked at for mining gold, and power and ability to process this amount of data in order to get some useful information from that data. So all these three put together produce the artificial intelligence. So the artificial intelligence is basically part of computer sciences. And there are two things that you will come across in whenever you talk about artificial intelligence, and that is machine learning and deep learning. And through deep learning, you will come across artificial neural network. Remember, machine learning and deep learning make up most of the artificial intelligence, as long as we remember. And then, of course, the machine learning and deep learning is a category or conglomerate of techniques through which data is processed. It's just like saying uh, machine learning is like a subject of medicine, and for example, deep learning is a subject of surgery. And then medicine is a global term, surgery is a global term, and then there are various branches and various procedures and various steps and various instruments, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the global terms. So the schema of the artificial intelligence essentially is you have data, the historic old data, then you have the formula to set the rules, algorithm that apply to this data. And then you add the parameters which are important, in which you predict, or the predictors. And at the end of this, you come out with a model to process the data to find the answer. Now, it's important to remember that a model is not a generic model for all kinds of function. Every specific function has its own model that is produced. And keep that, please, if you would, in mind, because we will come to that in just one moment. So the difference between the traditional computers, which is at the top, is that you put input and you put the algorithms and you get the answer. You know, you put in the your data, the algorithm always already lives in the computer software and hardware, and you get the answer. And but with the artificial intelligence, you actually teach the computer, so you put the input and the answer along with it, so that the computer can work out the rules of identifying the input and output relationship and comes out with the rules or the model. This is called the supervised machine learning. So just to summarize, machine learning is a process of creating algorithms and statistical models that improve automatically through experience and the use of data to draw inferences and to draw conclusions and to give predictions. So here is the three most commonly used processes of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced. Supervised learning is when you uh, have input data, right? And you tell the machine that there are green, there are red, there are magenta colors, and that those this is walking in front of me and it should not, sorry, so that the computer is able to process and separate these gummy bears into various colors. So you teach the computer, you tell the computer, and computer does what you tell it to do. The unsupervised data is used for clustering the data, so that after you have clustered it, you can then label it. So you do the input data without telling the computer what is what, and the computer has a model, already taught model, so that it can cluster and identify the data that is similar to each other. And so this is clustering the data, and this is the supervised learning. Then there is reinforced learning, where you tell this is partially supervised. In other words, you put the data, you have the computer to find the answer, and if it is wrong, you tell the computer, no, this is wrong, and then the cycle goes on and on and on until the computer gets it right. And that is the algorithm, which is the reinforced data. And reinforced data is actually the parrot that we told you. Every time the parrot, or every time a dog, you know, does the command correctly, he is rewarded with whatever the reward is, so that he is reinforced. It can be negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement. And this is especially useful in robotics, business strategy planning, and aircraft control development of aircraft controls. So that was the machine learning. So the machine learning are various algorithms where you manipulate the data in such a way that the hidden trends in the data become manifest for use for in various businesses and various sciences, including healthcare. Now, the second term we used is the deep learning. And the deep learning is inspired by human neural network, so that there are artificial neural network that allows computers to learn and make decision, mostly image recognition and image analysis. So this deep learning is specific mostly to image analysis, image learning, like, for example, in radiology, in dermatology, in pathology, and other image recognition, face recognition, retinal recognition, etc. So what is an artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is inspired by the human brain neuron, and it has interconnected group of nodes, just like the neuron and the axons are connected with each other. Just like the human eye will look at a cat and will process it through various neuronal connections and will tell the human that it is a cat. Similarly, the artificial neural network is consists of various nodes, the input node, the hidden layer, and the output node. And these nodes actually represent the digital representation of a pixel in the image in such a way that the if it's almost like you divide a puzzle, pieces of the puzzle, and place them in these nodes. And every puzzle or every pixel has a number, and it interacts in the hidden layer, which is programmed, and then the outer layer becomes the answer. So this is programmed in a similar way as the machine learning. All these input layer are connected with all the nodes of subsequent layer and so on. And these lines represent the weightage that is given to this pixel when it goes to the next level and so on. And we will see, and the nodes can be very large number of nodes. It can be one or it can be thousands. And every image, for example, or every type of image recognition has its own neural network. And there are several types of neural network for different types of image analysis. So this is a neural network, for example. This is how it works. I'm just going to show you a very short video. And for example, this is the input layer, and all these nodes and all the connection and their weightage are calculated until the final answer is produced in the output layer. Let me just go back to my slide if I can. So these are the various applications of machine learning only, and including virtual assistant image recognition in business and email spam and healthcare and stock market, online fraud detection, advertisement recommendation, and marketing, etc. But how does the machine learning actually do it? How the applications occur? If we notice that human mind can think in 2, 3, or possibly 4 dimensions, but the machine has the ability to analyze in 100 or even thousands of dimensions. So the data is reconstructed in this manner, where there are several, if you see each and every block differs from each other, indicating the dimensions. And it is the pattern recognition based on this kind of calculations that the prediction is based upon. Remember, the 3 parameters that come together that we talked about early allows this kind of computing to take place. Otherwise, in the previous computers, it'll probably take several thousand years to do this calculation to come up with the results that the AI-enabled computer are able to do. And if it is done by hand, it probably take several million years for human beings to come out with the result. So one of the commonly used application of AI is speech recognition. Siri is very common. So basically what happens in Siri, when we speak to the Siri, it translates those words into digital pixels, if you will. And those digital pixels are then translated into letters those letters now sent to the cloud computing area where they're translated, and then the appropriate answer is chosen, and the appropriate answer is then converted into speech, and you get the answer. And so many of these answers are locally stored and processed when the computer, but the backup is in the clouds wherever wherever it is processed. So the natural language processing is a text-based machine learning, which is able to read the charts and documents and extract important information for the purpose of various reasons, for research, for audit, for quality improvement, etc. Here's an example. This is a radiology report, and the language processing is able to say location of inner lower quadrant, right breast, type of tissue, fibroglandular, numerical data, 5 millimeter, normality, types of lesion, etc., recommendation. So based on this, the a summary of a medical report can be produced by text-based machine learning. This is just one example, and you know, it really imagination is the limit in the application of the machine learning, for example. Now, here is the AI field of computer vision. Computer vision, we said that the computer is able to classify and recognize the object from its memory and is able to process it. And this is the basis of the self-driving car, for example. And this is the basis of facial recognition of people and individuals in huge crowds and in stadiums in order to be able to recognize who that person is. So it's almost like a fingerprint. These are all like fingerprint are specific to individual. These pictures are specific to their labels, which are present within the within the memory of the computer or within the model of the algorithm. So in the same way, recognizing the images can lead to the diagnosis. Here is a, for example, mammography image. I'm a radiologist, so I will give you mammography image, which can recognize this lesion and its various attributes based on the model and the memory, and it is able to recognize between malignant and healthy tissue. So healthy tissue is 0, cancer is 1. So based on the computer analysis, this is a malignant lesion. Similarly, there are libraries of dermatological lesions available with which you can diagnose dermatological lesion with high level of accuracy. And this is particularly useful for general physicians, especially who do not have the backup of specialists themselves in rural areas, etc., to be able to make a diagnosis and do the needful. Similarly, computer image detection is another field where you can detect the nodules in the lungs for lungs cancer screening programs, and similarly detect abnormalities and nodules in the breast. And these are routinely used application of AI in radiology these days. We've been using it for the last 10 years or actually more. And so this is already around us. In histopathology, again, pattern recognition and recognition of the types of the cells and their nuclei and their nucleotides. Well, diagnosis between malignant and benign is possible. And once again, the program can give a specialist level diagnosis in histopathological slides and helps in the shortage of the pathologist. Now, robotics is a very exciting field, and we talked about the robotics. The training occurs from reinforcement learning, and these have been present in industry for much longer, especially in manufacturing and industry. But now the robotics have entered into medicine, and a very large number of robotic surgical procedures are being practiced all over the world. Also, the robots have become more or less ubiquitous as virtual assistants for those people who are indigent and are able to need some help from their caretakers. So here is a small, overview of 10 commonest application of the AI. Robotic surgery is probably the most common or most acquired application of the AI, and then virtual assistant, administrative workflow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is here. We don't see it, but if we, after today, hopefully, when we become conscious of the presence and application of AI, you will find that artificial intelligence is all around us. Now, the question is, will AI replace physicians? And that is a fear. Well, the consensus of opinion is that AI will not replace physicians, but physicians who use AI will certainly replace those who do not. Imagine a physician trained in, let's say, a developing country who does not, who probably knows how to use computer, but is not familiar with other application of AI, like radiologists not familiar with computer detection and 3D printing and et cetera, and they come to the US and they will more or less not be employable until they become familiar with various prevalent AI applications. And however, we think that AI is going to be one of the greatest friend of physician because it will make the physician's work more accurate, higher quality, faster, and even take over some of the jobs of the physician to help them, because there is virtually no foreseeable future chance that the AI is going to take over. What I like to strongly recommend that please write this down if you will, that go to YouTube and watch the GPT-3. This is one of the most advanced AI application by Google, one of the most advanced until about 2 weeks ago. And things are changing so fast that I don't really know what is the most advanced today. It could be something else, but nevertheless, it gives us the impression and idea and the impact of artificial intelligence has on our life and on our world. So, but the artificial intelligence is not a silver bullet for the society. It produces errors. There are biases that have been entered already in the artificial intelligence program, and they are affecting the society. For example, the justice system in the US is based, the decisions are based on lots of artificial intelligence application, particularly in sentencing and in determining whether somebody is guilty or not. And it has been shown, and it has been suggested that the bias of the programmers at the time of producing the model are manifesting itself in certain section of the society being unfairly treated. So similar bias can affect other aspects of the society, because after all, it is the humans who will program the algorithm and who will program the model to evaluate the data. There are obviously privacy concerns, there are copyright and authorship concern, but the biggest concern, as it has become manifest recently, if the AI is in the wrong hands, they can attack the public service facilities as well as the defense facilities of the for the enemy. And we all know, we have heard in the news that many of the public facilities like electricity and others have been affected by people who have entered into unauthorized entry into the US system, and Russians are to blame. But this is, this is one very good example of the detriment of AI in the wrong hands. Well, even the computers, male computers cannot make their female computers happy. And this hopefully is the story of life of many of the people who are over here. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. And over to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sarwat. This was wonderful. A really, really amazing summary. Thank you. Let me go on to introduce our worthy panelists, Dr. Junaid Kalia, who's a really good friend of mine. I got introduced to the impact of AI in healthcare, I believe 3 or 4 years ago, actually by Junaid, when he invited me to participate in a paper he was writing on AI in stroke. I think we started the project 4.5 years ago. That turned out to be a really interesting paper, but not only that, it became an introduction to the impact of AI in healthcare, because it's something that we are not very routinely exposed to. Dr. Junaid Kalia is Vice President of Clinical Strategy and Teleneurology with VMed. He's a neurocritical care, stroke and epilepsy specialist neurologist, and has a vast experience in telemedicine and AI in healthcare. Actually, Junaid is really, really a rich resource of information. So make a note of his contacts, and it will be extremely useful to you. He's the only educator I know who actually does more teaching than I do, and actually has a better content than I have. So I really look up to him in introducing new technologies and new ideas in education, and all is free. I've never seen him charge for anything, which is amazing. And the quality of content he has out there is superb. I have not seen a better content anywhere. So go to the resources he's sharing, ask him for more resources. This is the opportunity. And I'm so lucky that he consented to join the Merit AI committee to work with Professor Sarwat on further publication, writing overviews and reviews of use of AI in various aspects of healthcare, and also sharing some ideas on what kind of projects can be done. I also found out that it is Dr. Junaid's birthday tomorrow. So an early happy birthday, Junaid. And thank you for being here. So over to you for your comments and any resources that you could share, Junaid. Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm very grateful for Dr. Hussain to actually give me the opportunity. We are already working on 3 different papers. I'm a neurologist at heart, so most of my research is going to continue towards clinical applications in neurology. Of course, neuroradiology is the key area, but we have neurophysiological applications, including EEG, machine learning in Parkinson's disease, etc. So we have multiple papers that are coming out. If you have, just send the email to appnamerit@gmail.com, and then we'll compile a list and then we'll send it out to you. The idea behind it is to actually create 3 things. Number 1, that the residents or the future residents can put them on their CV. Number 2 is actually create a collaboration in among further researchers to create different ideas, to create more ideas, or even if you are replicating studies, we can actually show that we can do it from Pakistan rather than anything. And the last and the most important one is to continue learning, because that's, to be honest with you, that's, in my opinion, my reason to live in this planet. So it's important that we do all those three things and collaboratively as compared to that. I'm just going to have one more comment, sort of understanding what machine learning, and this is going to come back because the questions that I'm seeing is that what's the real difference, the paradigm shift in programming in between artificial intelligence and classical statistical modeling. That's the key thing, right? We have CHADS-VAS2 score, right, to predict stroke well. So what I did over there was that I went through a whole bunch of data. I personally provided intelligence and looked at it and said, these are the 5 parameters. These are the weights of those parameters. And that will be the prediction on these points. When I do that on a classical statistical modeling, then I have to provide my intelligence on the weightage of that. And I do that in an informed way after the data is done. But what I do with artificial intelligence is I say that, you know what, these are 50,000 medical records, take it. And the output I want is the prediction of stroke. Figure it out. I don't want to know how, I don't want to know where. The computer is responsible of figuring it out. It takes not just these 7 parameters, it takes 70 parameters. It doesn't mark out the weightage between the past stroke as going to be 0.2 or vascular disease as 1. It is going to apply weights in a very different way, including 0.7 to 0.0007 to one of those parameters. And that's how the paradigm shift in artificial intelligence is. It's all about prediction. It's all about you sitting on a black jack table, and you're finding to know what the next card will be, so you win the money. It is not about explaining, it is about predicting. So those are the 2 things you have to remember. The prediction modeling is the key thing between artificial intelligence and how it differs from classical statistical modeling itself. Thank you, Danish.
Thank you, Junaid. So I want to go on to some of our committee chairs and take their view. I have some comments to make. And you guys are all welcome to raise your hand, and I can get you a microphone and you can ask your questions and we can have some discussion about it. I'm willing to stay up a little late if this topic is of interest and people have questions about it. But before I do all of that, Junaid, where can people get to your resources, where they can find you, where they can follow you, your excellent content that you post every day?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually put it easier for you. It's my classical screen. It's on Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way to actually get in touch with me, because I have a virtual assistant that actually compiles an email weekly and everything. And I'll send you the Academy website. All the resources will be free. I will be eventually making it into a course itself, which I probably will be ending up free for APPNA members. So, but it's going to be charged for the other audiences because I have a lot bigger audience in Europe and America from my YouTube channel and my LinkedIn group. But APPNA merit people will get a code that they can redeem.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Junaid. Let me again tell everyone, please raise your hand if you want a microphone, or write your question on chat box or in Q&A. I see a question posted by Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta, and I think that is a very crux of the whole session today is the context of Pakistan. So, a lot of things that we're saying are more of an introduction to AI, but in the long run, we want to bring the whole discussion back to the context of Pakistan and see, okay, what can we do? Of course, we being present here in America and having practices here, we will, of course, think outside of Pakistan and do projects here locally. But when we collaborate with you guys, when we reach out to you guys, we're always thinking of the context of Pakistan, and we want to come back to it. But we have some wonderful people here. I know another enthusiast of AI is Dr. Babar Rao, my co-chair in research for merit and my partner in crime. And having Babar here, Babar, I just saw this news this morning. I was looking at this company called Dermatech, which basically put these Scotch tape kind of stickers on the melanoma and take it off, and you get few microcells, maybe 5-10 cells off the skin, and they use AI-based learning to do genetic analysis of those cells and diagnose melanoma, and they're trying to get to an accuracy better than a biopsy-based diagnosis of melanoma. And that simple concept of genetic analysis of those few cells of a scotch tape on your skin currently is capitalized at $1 billion. So $1 billion, which is like probably half of the tranche of a loan that Pakistan get, is a capitalization of the simple concept of genetic analysis of a skin cell to diagnose melanoma. Apparently, there are 4 million biopsies done annually on melanoma. But Babar, if you want to say something in some other projects or AI that you're doing in dermatology?
Yes, so yeah, Dermatech actually they can predict as good as histology. There are lesions which are in between, like they are not melanoma, they are not nevus, what they are. So I think Dermatech can improve on it a little bit. There is another technology which is called precision diagnosis. They also are in the same ball game, but they actually do this analysis on tissues, like on biopsies. When you have melanoma diagnosed, and you're thinking how this melanoma will behave other than our current model, which is the thickness, they can actually tell you this melanoma may be whatever thickness, but the chances of survival are this much. So very new technology, AI based. And then other than that, most of the work is in diagnostic, like again, predictions. My work is mostly using, as Sarwat showed, some skin images. So we're looking at clinical images, then polarized images, and then something called confocal microscopy, which I am one of the most experienced person in US in dermatology in confocal microscopy. And we are doing with Stanford, trying to predict again based on these non-invasive images like X-rays or something, and to see if we can tell melanoma from not melanoma from those images. So that work is in progress, but there is lot AI in dermatology because it's easy to take images. But it was an excellent session by Sarwat. He made it simple for very simple people like me. And obviously I want to follow Junaid. I don't know him much, but you started introducing him in last few meetings, and I'll be his fan on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Babar. So let me invite Dr. Fareed Suri. Dr. Fareed Suri is our co-chair for research committee. He's a neurologist like me and a stroke neurologist. And we've talked about some projects. There is a big potential for developing programs in neuroradiology, neuroimaging. So, for example, there was a big deal where early recognition of stroke was done based on AI imaging of CT scan. So it was a perfusion weighted CT scan, which can pick up an area at risk of dying in acute occlusion, and then you can go on to do thrombectomies and remove that clot. And I know thrombectomy has started in Pakistan, but Pakistan still does not have that solution, that software which picks up on CT perfusion imaging. And in future, if we make thrombectomy or thrombolysis more prevalent, we probably will need solutions like those. And the question is that why can't we build a homegrown solution rather than paying $20,000 of a license fee annually to a company per hospital? That's kind of what their charge is. So Fareed, your thoughts on AI and in neurology, stroke, and role in Pakistan?
So it is, thank you, Danish, for giving me opportunity. So in stroke, I think that's the AI where it is has the biggest role, or it at least for now. And it is in AI is the only AI that has been approved for reimbursement by the CMS, at least for now, is that anyone who uses AI to detect a stroke for a clot or a large vessel occlusion, they have a reimbursement of $1,000 by the government for using the AI. So it's a huge, big thing. This is the first time that AI has ever been reimbursed. It means that that there is, as long as you have a software installed, you can get reimbursed by the AI. It is because AI is able to detect the large vessel occlusion right away. And at the same time, it is a computer integrated system. Everywhere it gets texted. It's an amazing system. But nevertheless, it's very expensive, as you pointed it out. It's not 20,000, it's actually around 50,000 per hospital per year, which is, I mean, I cannot imagine that this is ridiculous. We are, for example, working with a company, and that company has about 750 hospitals. So you can imagine what volume of business they have and what's the potential for business. I believe that there should be a strong initiative by the government, as Dr. Sarwat has been pointing out, and we are me and Dr. Sarwat and Junaid, and we are in this core group, and we have been. He's the main force around it. Is that there should be a strong push from in Pakistan, and especially involvement of the government is that towards building AI, because as Dr. Sarwat pointed out, it's not only the technology but also the data. If the hospitals are willing to contribute their data and participate in it, I don't see a reason why Pakistan cannot be on the forefront of developing AI applications especially for radiology. So it's a need for the time, and it's an opportunity that we need to avail in Pakistan. Thank you, Danish.
Ji, Professor Sarwat, you have a comment?
What I was actually, this is a very good point about the thing about the data is that we always talk about the fact that the data is not available in Pakistan and that we don't have digitized systems and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, those of us, including me, who don't want to solve the problem rather than look at the problem. The issue is this, that the AI is based on huge amount of data and which is not available in Pakistan and the developing world. So this is an opportunity for the developing world to research in AI with lesser data with the similar results. Smaller amount of data that's available. And as Junaid Saab, Dr. Junaid Kalia will know, that the newer program and the newer libraries are requiring less and less data in order to give the same results as before. So if in Pakistan we can focus on the research of being able to produce models that do not require as much data as possible, as the Western models require, that's an opportunity. The second thing is that in the institution where the uniform data is available, especially specialists hospital who have one or two diseases, or specialist departments who deal with one or two diseases, their data can easily be digitized because by the local data input labor, if you will, which is relatively inexpensive. That's my comment.
Thank you, Professor Sarwat. So before I go on to my co-chair, Dr. Shahid Rafiq, and invite him, I have a quick comment. I think if I simplify it for our audience and for ourselves, there are three components needed to produce a useful product. You need hardware, which is actually the easiest thing. Hardware is pretty common, it's pretty affordable. You can get the hardware very easily. You need the people who can write the program, and that's the human resource. And I think we have a rich resource available in Pakistan. For example, I got connected with the National Center for Artificial Intelligence at NUST, which is a collaboration of 13 different universities which have AI labs and hundreds of people who are working on AI and has the capacity to write programs if they have the right ideas and resources. I think the third component, which is the hardest one, is data. You need to have a large amount of data, and you need to have a clean data that is harmonious, homogenized, standardized. And if we don't have the right data, then the other two resources are useless. You can have the people who can write the program, and you can have the hardware, but you cannot train the software to good results on a poor data. So you either have a good quality data or you have a really large amount of data. If you really don't want a clean data, then you need a huge amount of data. So you can get answers on, for example, a chest X-ray from 1,000 really, really high quality images or 10,000 medium quality images. But if you have a poor quality, non-homogenized images, then you need more than 100,000 chest X-rays to answer one simple question like outline of a heart. So the poor the data, the more the data you need. I think this is an oversimplification, but that's kind of a concept where we need to develop resources in Pakistan. So Dr. Shahid Rafiq is one of my mentors and advisors and co-chairs in Merit, and has been chair for Merit over 5 years before handing it over to me. Dr. Shahid, your comments and thoughts on AI in Pakistan.
Thank you, Danish. I think as that we are learning about the landscape of not only AI, but other healthcare innovations. But I think AI by far is the most intriguing, most exciting new innovation as Dr. Sarwat said, that it's not as new, but it really took over in the past. Hello, sorry, yes. I thought I got cut. So basically, I think while we are learning in Pakistan, the initiative that Junaid and Sarwat and AI team, which I'm also part of, have started is great to come up with papers, concept papers, and those papers can also include the need assessment and the current infrastructure in Pakistan. So research around AI in Pakistan, I think, would be the very important, needed, low-hanging fruit for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahid. I have one person who has raised their hand, Syed Ali Talha Raza. Dr. Talha, if you want to unmute yourself and make your comment or ask a question. Meanwhile, while waiting for it, there are very, very simple ideas that can be used in AI with very high impact. We, for example, had a meeting yesterday talking about early diagnosis of Parkinson's disease and predictor of need for medication. So if you can create just a simple tool that can help physicians decide when to suspect Parkinson's or decide when to start treatment for Parkinson's. The data already exists, especially in here in North America. We are fortunate that we have these electronic health record systems, which are humongous resource of data. The problem was that the data was trapped. It was not in a way that you could use it for research up until what Dr. Sarwat was pointing out was the natural language processing. The ability to read the handwritten notes or typed notes didn't exist before. So somebody has to first convert it into Excel sheets or Google documents or something where some computer software could analyze it. And that was the main bottleneck in the past for research. But now that is not a bottleneck anymore with natural language processing. More and more research AI-based training programs are coming out that can learn on the data that already existed in our electronic health record system. Now, I think that's another context for Pakistan, is that one of the downside in Pakistan will be that we have no captured data. We never did documentation. We never kept records. We never had electronic health record. So it was not only quality of healthcare or billing, it's now lost data. All that data that could have been captured or can be captured now to use for future AI training and research in the next 5 years is not going to happen because we don't have electronic health records. How are you going to do, where are you going to get the data? You will start collecting from scratch again. And here, North America, we have an advantage. We have data. My hospital has data for last 15 years in electronic health record. And that's all the patients I've seen in the last 10 years in Parkinson's. The data already exists. Once I have that natural language processing software, I can go back and just train the program on the data that I already have in my system and get results quickly.
A couple of things, Danish. Yeah. So I just want to make a comment. So for example, currently I'm doing a project about CAT scans and CT brains. Just to be honest with you, I'm buying data from Pakistan and South Korea. So the notion that we don't have data is dependent on exactly what kind of data we are looking for. As a matter of fact, getting data from Pakistan was more important to me as compared to even from US, because the technology that exists in the CAT scans were a little different. And for my algorithm to be more robust, to be applicable globally, I wanted to make sure that different kinds of data is included. So as far as the radiology data is concerned, actually Pakistan is a very rich source. And not only that, there, as Dr. Hussain submitted, that there are possibility of labeling it in a way that is more accurate as compared to even data that exists here, because over here it's also packed into a way that I have to extract the report and then also the radiology. And believe it or not, it's actually cheaper, faster, and better in some aspects. So just not discount that from the get-go. Number two thing is to understand is, again, what what you asked about hardware and the resources. It is, again, my whole team at VMed for telemedicine from the developer team is sitting in Pakistan. I have 18 engineers, which is all intellectual property, etc. But that's also, most of them are sitting in Pakistan. So believe it or not, the human resource potential in Pakistan is ridiculous. It is amazing to see the amount of talent that is coming out from this country as far as, compute power in terms of, in human intellectual property. The last thing that you're suggesting, that hopefully they don't follow the electronic health records debacle in US. I mean, there are definitely better examples, NHS in London, Singapore, and South Korea, because that's, believe it or not, that's the data I tend to use better because they're available. And lastly, do not discount the availability of free data. There are 50,000 chest X-ray database from Stanford. NHS has actually published 500 MRI brains for free online. You just have to submit an application. So you can still do a significant amount of work on the free data available. So don't discount that. As a matter of fact, the first initial train on the Google Cloud TPU engine. I just take the data from there and test out my hypothesis. It looks bad, let's move on. So those are the things that you have to take into account as well when you are making those decisions. The last point that Dr. Hussain said, that so generative adversarial networks, GAN is an algorithm that works on the other algorithm to actually produce better results with less data. Number two, I produce digital twins. So I actually end up creating 3 or 4 digital twins, which is considered synthetic data. So if I have one data point, I can create multiple slightly different synthetic data from one data. So I can augment the availability of data itself. So there are so many ways that you can actually do this in a way that can be functional and it can be better. And then last thing, of course, Dr. Surya suggested that the key thing that is actually the most important thing, in my opinion, is ability to monetize and commercialize. And I'm going to be very honest with you, there is no reason that you should actually do anything unless it's actually solving a problem. So the problem first, making sure there's a pathway to monetization in at least European countries and US countries. So therefore it's available for free for our country. That's the pathway that we're trying to take, is basically use the data from Pakistan, intellectual capital, make it easy, sell it abroad, and make it free in Pakistan.
So quick comment before I go to Dr. Sarwat for his comment. I think if you guys are interested in collaborating, reach out to us on apnamerit@gmail.com, join our Discord server for discussions. We will make project groups over there. And Junaid, if you can maybe suggest a couple of easy projects for people, either in chat box or maybe direct them to your website to see what could be simple, or maybe join our Discord server and post over there in our AI channel on some easy projects that can be quick to start with, are not very resource intense. Even data is a precious resource there. Professor Sarwat, please go ahead. You're mute. Please unmute yourself.
Just wanted to make 2 comments. One is that if we concentrate on what is possible only, or make it possible, and not look at the obstructions, I think we will probably find the way. Number one. Number two, I think the concern about data might be an old way of thinking about artificial intelligence, even maybe 2-year-old thinking. The current thinking of today is that there are many, many tools that can substantially overcome the issues of the data at one point, and at the same time, more and more data is becoming available in Pakistan. So the 2 ends are getting closer and closer, and that's what we need to concentrate on in order to move forward. And I'm certain, as Dr. Kalia said, well, I just wanted to let you know that yesterday I had requested Dr. Kalia to be easy on me, because I learned the artificial intelligence myself, and he's obviously an expert and knows everything about it. So that's the idea, that first we say it is possible. Second, we look at the solutions, which are actually much closer than we thought 2 years ago. And the complaint about the data, etc., is an old complaint. I think is not as valid this time as before.
Very good. I think we're a little bit over. If someone has any important comments, please go ahead. Otherwise, we can conclude the session here and continue the discussions in the next Saturday and on online forums and Discord, and write to us on apnamerit@gmail.com. Any last comments before we call it a day? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Sarwat and Dr. Junaid Talia, for joining us. I really appreciate your expertise.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.